My name is Mia, and once upon a time, I believed my life was perfect. My father, Mr. Daniel, was a successful businessman who owned a renowned construction company. My mother, Mrs. Lena, was the embodiment of warmth, a homemaker who always made sure our home was cozy and inviting. We lived in a grand house on the outskirts of town, with a beautiful garden that was always impeccably maintained. From the outside, everything seemed like the ideal life that many people long for. But the seemingly perfect life began to crack slowly, not due to a single catastrophic event, but through a series of small incidents that felt like mismatched puzzle pieces. The beginning of unexpected tension. I first noticed a change in our family when my father started coming home later and later. "New project out of town?" he would say whenever my mother or I asked. His face was weary, but his eyes betrayed something I couldn't understand, a secret hidden behind his tired smile. My mother, who was usually cheerful and full of energy, also began to change. She became quiet, often staring off into space while holding a cold cup of tea in the kitchen. One night, I saw her crying silently, quickly wiping her tears as I walked into the room. "Mom, what's wrong?" I asked, concerned. She gave me a faint smile and shook her head. "Just tired, sweetheart. There's nothing to worry about." But I knew that wasn't the truth. Something had changed. I could feel it in the air, as if the very atmosphere of our home had become heavy and difficult to breathe. A few weeks later, I found myself having a restless night. My mind was filled with inexplicable anxiety, so I decided to wander into my father's study to find a book that might help me sleep. While searching, I came across a small wooden box tucked away on a shelf. It looked old, beautifully carved, and something about it drew me in. Curiosity took over, and before I knew it, I had opened it. Inside, I found a stack of old letters and a few faded photographs. My hands trembled as I opened one of the letters. The contents made my blood run cold. It was a love letter, clearly written by a woman who wasn't my mother. The letters were full of fond memories and promises that had long been forgotten. My heart felt like it had been struck with a hammer. What did this mean? Who was this woman? And why had my father kept these letters like precious treasures? Over the next few days, I tried to act normal, but my thoughts kept drifting back to that wooden box and the letters inside. I didn't know who to talk to. Confronting my father seemed like an impossible task, and my mother seemed to be sinking deeper into her own world. But that night, everything came to light on its own. I woke to the sound of loud voices from the living room. My mother's voice was angry, and my father's tone was defensive. I crept down the stairs, sneaking behind the door to listen. "You think I don't know?" My mother's voice trembled with emotion. "I saw the messages. I know you're still in contact with her." "What are you talking about?" My father's voice was desperate. "That's in the past. I ended it years ago." "But you're still keeping her letters, Daniel. I found them in your study." My blood ran cold, so my mother knew. She had found the box too. The painful truth. I couldn't stay silent any longer. With hesitant steps, I walked into the living room, causing both of my parents to jump at the sight of me. My mother's eyes were red from crying, while my father's face was filled with deep remorse. "I saw it too," I said softly. "I found the box." My father sighed heavily, as if the weight of the world had crashed down on him. He admitted everything. The woman in the letters had been his first love, someone he had lost to time and distance, but the memories never truly left his life. "She never came back into my life," he said, his voice shaking. "But I could never throw those letters away. Not because I don't love your mother, but because it was a part of my life that's hard to forget." I saw my mother trembling, fighting to hold back her anger and sorrow. She loved my father with all her heart, but this confession shattered her trust. The days that followed were filled with agonizing silence. My father tried to fix their relationship, begging for a second chance. But trust, once broken, is fragile, so hard to rebuild. My mother started leaving the house often, seeking an escape from the reality that was weighing on her. I tried to mediate, but the pain between them ran too deep. One night, my mother decided to leave and stay with my aunt for a while. She needed space to think, to decide whether there was any hope for forgiveness. My father, usually so strong, looked broken and lost. I had never seen him like that before, as if the world beneath his feet had crumbled. Months passed. Eventually, my parents divorced. My mother decided she could no longer live in the shadow of my father's past. She wanted to start a new life, far from the painful memories. I moved into a small apartment with my mother, while my father stayed in our old house. My relationship with them became complicated. I loved them both, but I couldn't erase the deep sense of loss caused by their separation. Though our lives went on, the wound remained, reminding us that love alone isn't always enough to keep a family together. Sometimes, secrets buried in the past can destroy everything, not because of physical betrayal, but because trust erodes slowly, like water wearing away at a stone until it eventually crumbles.